Hi, it's Lauren. Thanks for joining me today in my craft room. I'm happy to have you here. I'm going to be doing the next sheet load of cards for March 2023. As always, I will have Call Me Crafty Al's YouTube channel in my description where you can learn more about sheet load of cards and how to get this download yourself. I'm going to be using some Lawn Fawn products today. I'm using the retired but still gorgeous paper pack Let's Polka Mon Ami collection in the Petite 6x6 paper pad. I'm also using some Kraft cardstock and some white cardstock, and I used some dies to cut down my rectangles, and then I trimmed down my pattern paper to match the instructions from the sheet load of cards. Now, there is a sentiment kind of area in the card layout, so I decided that I wanted to create a colorful kind of banner to be in that area of my card. So I grabbed some distress oxides that I thought matched that paper pack pretty well. I went with dried marigold, worn lipstick, and cracked pistachio, and I'm just using my dome foam blenders on some mixed media cardstock and just adding color in random circles around this piece of paper, and then I will splatter some water and also some metallic white watercolor as I finish up here. And the reason why I love following Crafty L's sheet load of cards is that it kind of gives me something to start with, and I always tweak the design to fit something that I feel, more inspired. I don't want to say more inspired, but it inspires me to tweak it to be more my style, I guess you could say. Or, maybe there's just something as I'm creating and following the sketch that I kind of like more, um, especially when I am using like a particular stamp set. For this month, I'm using the year 13 clear stamps from Lawn Fawn, and it's this cute little dim sum pun birthday sentiment. I don't know why I went with these colors for the dim sum. I think I just felt inspired like by pastel colors because I knew that I wanted to stamp my images in brown ink and color with softer colors. So I thought using this paper pad um, would just look really nice. And as I go through the card today, I actually end up taking a break because I was creating this at nighttime and I just wasn't feeling inspired anymore. So when that happens, I usually just turn off the lights, go to bed, and try again the next day. So you'll see as I go through the card, I'll talk about where I felt like the card was just taking a weird turn. But anyway, so that's my background. I'm going to let it dry for a couple seconds, and then I took a towel to dab up the excess water, and then I'm going to make a bunch of these backgrounds so that way it will fit the total number of cards that this card sketch creates, which I believe is 8, although I think I end up making 9 total just because of the way I cut my pattern paper. So I'm taking the largest banner die from the Everyday Sentiment Banners die set from Lawn Fawn, and I cut a bunch of those banners. So now I have some really colorful, distressed, with watercolor sparkliness banners that I'm going to use for my sentiment later on in the card. I'm trying to take off any of the little paper wispies that sometimes happen with die cutting, and then I will put together one of these cards. So I'm taking different pieces, again, following the sketch from Crafty Al, and I'm going to just glue these together. So I start with gluing down my large pattern paper strip on the bottom of this white piece of cardstock. And the smaller white piece of cardstock I die cut with the largest of the small stitched rectangle stackables from Lawn Fawn. And the dimensions of these paper line up almost exactly with the stitched details on my die cut. So I'm just putting those in and gluing them down right inside of the corners of those stitch details. So I started with the bottom strip. I did the largest square in the left corner, and now I'm doing the smallest. I guess this is more of a rectangle than a square, but a rectangle on the final corner. And then for this piece, I'm going to glue it last because I can evenly space it in between the yellow and pink pieces. So that way they look nice and evenly spaced between all 3 of those heart pattern pieces of paper. And then for my banner, I originally was thinking of just gluing it right down to the middle, but I didn't like it. I thought it looked kind of weird with those white edges showing. So I thought, okay, maybe I will off center it and then I'll add another shape to the other side when I add my stamped images. So I went ahead and just adhered this panel to the larger panel, which is A2, and it's cut from the largest of the large stitch rectangle stackables. And then here is where I'm kind of debating on what to do. So I set it aside because I knew, again, I was making this at night, and I don't know, the banners, I just wasn't vibing with them, even though I made so many and already cut them out. I just was feeling off about them. So I just set it aside and I was like, let's go into the stamping of the images. So I have a piece of cardstock that is alcohol marker friendly, and I'm going to stamp 2 chopsticks and 2 cute little buns here, and I'm stamping them in Crunchy Leaf by Fawn, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink. And I stamped a bunch, enough to fill up all my cards. And then I took 2 different faces and stamped those into the little buttons. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see my coloring. It's very simple for these images. I am doing the chopstick first, and I started with E170, which is going to be my darker shade. And then I filled in the rest of the chopstick with E110. I wanted it to be a brown wooden looking chopstick that kind of matched the brown ink of my stamped images. For the little buns for the dim sum, I am starting with YR209, and I'm using that as kind of the shadow edges of my little buns here. And then I took YR212 and just brought that out. This is more of my mid-tone. So I just did, those curved edges with my darkest color, and now I'm going completely around all of my little bun here, and I'm not going to the very, very edge. I want it to look round, and part of that is to leave a lighter edge where the ink is. And then my lightest tone is WG 0.5, which is a warm gray, and I don't go completely over, but you can just completely color it in with that. But I wanted it to look really light, so then I took my colorless blender and then completely colored in my little dim sum bun. I'm going through alliteration issues here. And then for the cheeks, I kind of debated if I wanted to use the stamp set, and I just decided to grab a marker, and I used R20 to create those pink cheeks. And then I have a white gel pen. This is the Jelly Roll in the size 10. And I'm adding in some highlights. Can't forget those cute cheeks on my little food item here. There is a die set for this stamp set, and I will include that down below in case you like to buy the dies with the stamps, but I decided to fussy cut these out, and then I'm going to use my scan and cut when I bulk cut the rest of my images. So I decided to grab a scallop circle. This is also from Lawn Fawn, the scallop circle Stackables, and I thought that that would be a good place to put my stamped images on, and it will cover the part of my banner that way when it's off-centered you can't really tell. So I'm just kind of doing a rough look here of how my images are going to look. And again, I was just kind of not vibing with this banner for some reason, so I took a break. And then before I hit record, I finished the card and I stamped my sentiment. And as you can see, obviously it's stamped not perfectly, just of how I glued down my images. And I honestly felt better the next day about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just keep going. And I stamped with a black ink, and I didn't really like it because everything else is in brown on my card. So I have my sentiment from that stamp set, year 13. And it says, "Dim somebody say it's your birthday." And I'm going to stamp that onto the banner first. So that way, sorry for my head here, that way I know where to stamp, or not stamp, but glue down my stamped images. So I have my sentiment. I use VersaFine in a Pinecone brown ink, and I put some foam adhesive behind that and glued that down to my card background. I'm going to die cut another circle here, and it's small enough that I'm just going to use my little Hefty Doodle machine, and I will have that scallop circle again. I was kind of going back and forth on what color ink to add a little bit of shadow behind my dim sum. On my other one that I had that I finished up to see if I would like the final card, I used gray, but again, everything is brown on my card, so I grabbed Sugar Cookie from Lawn Fawn, and I'm using my yellow little mini brush here, which I guess Sugar Cookie is more of a pale brown, but I wanted more yellow to come out, so even though Sugar Cookie is a warmer brown, I used the yellow brush so that way there would be, if I had any leftover yellow ink, it would be a little bit lighter when blending it onto that scallop circle. So now I'm just kind of giving a rough idea of where my images are going to go, because I want to stamp my cute little steam stamp from the year 13 set, and I'm stamping it in the same dried marigold ink as I did my coloring of my little banners. And then I will add the same thickness of foam adhesive as I did of my sentiment banner strip, and I'm going to glue that down to the left, covering where the banner would end on the other side if it was centered. So now I'm just using my glue with a fine point to glue down my chopsticks, and then I'm going to grab some thin foam squares. These are by Scrapbook Adhesive. They're just the thinner foam adhesive, and I'm going to put those behind my little dim sum buns, and I'm going to make sure the one with the little like closed eyes has the steam coming out, and then the one with the little eyelashes is just next to it. And then there's me dropping my card front. But here's how it turned out. I actually am waiting for my order of cardstock to come in so I can make card bases. But I think it turned out really cute. I'm glad I stuck with it. The banner is a bit wild, I guess, compared to the softness of the rest of the card. But I really am happy with how it turned out, and I'm glad that I kept going. And overall, I really loved this month's sketch. So make sure you check out Crafty Al's video down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!